Hello, everyone. Okay. Oh, should be able to hear me now. I think my mic was a little bit funny there. How's everybody doing? It is day 3 of Harry's trial. Some interesting details. Do you all remember maybe 4 years ago? For those of you who were around 4 years ago, Gavin Burrows, who is this dodgy private investigator that is wrapped up in this case, me and some other squaddies got into it with him on Instagram. Sorry, not Instagram, Twitter. And he blocked some of us because he had started talking about the case and how he even had that he was Harry's friend in his bio. And we were all like, this guy is weird. And now his name has come up again because he's flip-flopping on his statement. Anyway, I might actually play that. It's an 8-minute video I did about him. I think I'll play it in the next podcast because that's definitely something I want to revisit with the absolute weirdo. But today we have quite a few things to get through. This might be, gosh, 1 hour plus podcast because I've missed it a day. Let's see who's in the chat. Elaine Parker, a member for 43 months. I am so glad that you've called to live too, hon. Thank you. You are much appreciated. Your presence is much appreciated here. Hey, Church Nelly. Hey, Wendy. Hey, Annie, Tara. Hey, Mina. Okay, let's get into it. Let's start with, we've got so much to get through. So much to get through. So let's start with... Right, let's start with this. So, actually, it was only a day ago. That we were going back and forth about whether or not Charles would go to the US. I've actually put that wrong in the head in my header. So let me actually just change that. I actually put that down as Trump UK visit. It's meant to be the other way around. But there was flip-flopping as to whether or not this would happen. Well, it looks like it's going to happen. It looks like Charles and the UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, will be going to the US. Now, I don't really understand why Charles has to go. Neither does Keir Starmer, to be honest, if the United Kingdom had a goddamn backbone. But Charles definitely doesn't need to go. Does anybody remember when Betty was alive? When's the last time that she went on a US state visit? If the monarch isn't really meant to be a political figure, as they always tell us, but then when it's convenient, somehow they become a political figure. So why would Charles need to go? For what? Okay, so let's read this because this is just interesting. Hold on, folks. Actually, I do need to change that in the title because I got that wrong. There we go. Okay, so on Saturday, Donald Trump announced plans for tariffs on many European countries. Trump was clear in his rationale. The tariffs would be levied until Greenland was given to him in some way. Listen, this ridiculous thing that they've got going on, that the US is going to take Greenland and they want Greenland's resources. I just don't see how that would be allowed to fly. How the United States, how the United States military, how United States oligarchs, and by the way, the likes of Bezos, Peter Thiel, that they're all invested in companies that do things like mining, like mineral resource mining, industrial, scale resource related mining for resources and infrastructure and all the construction that you would need for that. They're invested in these companies, by the way. So it's not just Trump we're talking about here. Trump is really just a puppet. Let's just be clear about that. He's just a clownish, disgusting puppet who can't believe that he got into this position. It's who's behind him that we also need to be paying attention to. But what I was going to say is, I just don't, you can play this game and create certain narratives when it comes to black and brown folks. And when it comes to imperialism and colonialism, especially that's military led, that's resource grabbing led, they've been able to do that in Africa and across the Middle East. I just don't see how they're going to do it to a homogeneously white country and get away with it. A country that is protected under European treaties, a country that doesn't have, any political beef with anyone really. And then they're at Davos right now, and I believe in one of Trump's speeches, he got Greenland mixed up with Iceland. Like, I don't know how we got here politically, but here we are. And now you've got Charles and Sama apparently going for a US visit. Anyway, Trump absolutely is that effing stupid and evil, as are the Americans who voted for him and support him still. Well, in any case, this has become a major political issue for the UK for many reasons. One of those reasons, King Charles is supposed to make his first state visit as king to the US in April. Trump loves the British royals and he believes that they like him and respect him. Listen, Charles in that golden ballroom, the new dictator West Wing that they're building, that is going to be an image that I think the UK establishment is going to regret. I just know Kate feels stupid about these pictures. By the way, that poor lady, do forgive me, I forget her name, Renee, who was shot by a ICE agent. She wasn't the first. There have been people being attacked, shot at, unalived by ICE agents, but this whole thing has been going on well before these pictures of Kate and Trump were taken. And she was happy to sit there grinning at him. Like, this is what it looks like to sell your soul. And for what? So you can wear that crown and a dress. Wear a crown and a Jenny Packham dress. That's your reward for debasing yourself like this. And now Charles is going to go to the US while this is happening. The two images at the bottom, that's what they're doing to reporters and photographers, by the way. Charles could very easily, if he wanted to, not go. Like, Americans celebrate the 4th of July for a reason. He doesn't have to go. I do not believe that Charles has to go. This is 100% a choice. And I wonder if part of it is to be intimidating to our faves, to be honest. So it would be a huge blow to his ego if Charles cancels the state visit. Well, the Telegraph got a big briefing from Downing Street and Buckingham Palace about how the state visit is still on schedule, but it's vaguely to be decided. So Charles's dilemma: Greenland is a territory of Denmark and has its own king. The Danish royal family are old friends of the British royals, and Charles will be well aware of the implications of being seen to ignore the threat to its sovereignty. Listen, Charles and the British royals don't give a flying F about them other monarchies. They don't even show up to their birthdays. Having soothed world leaders and calmed choppy waters on issues from Ukraine to trade and beyond, has he? The king has now the king is now faced with making the highest profile visit in decades to meet one of the world's most unpredictable presidents. There is no suggestion of cancelling or changing the itinerary, sources said on Tuesday, despite questions over whether the royal family should be enjoying the company of a dictator, whose capacity for threatening foreign territories appears to be growing. Ed Davey, leader of the Liberal Democrats, has argued that the UK must not be a doormat for an extortionist or reward Trump's behavior with the pageantry he craves. Well, they did that when he came. There Kate is with her crown and her Jenny Packham gown, grinning and grinning. So they've done that already. The Republic campaign group, not unpredictably argued, Charles visiting Trump in the US will only play into Trump's hands and will make the UK look weak. I agree. I mean, we already look weak. We already look weak. All that pomp and pageantry and carriages and a whole banquet for this fall. Has any other country done this for Trump? Sir Keir Starmer's spokesman asked about it on Tuesday and would only say that the UK-US relationship is built on 250 years of history and decades of unparalleled cultural links and defense and security collaboration. There is no relationship that has delivered more for the British people. Are you sure? I mean, I wouldn't call it a relationship versus energy and resource siphoning, but Britain has gotten a lot more, I would say, from other countries, more so than the US. The visit, in other words, will go ahead until further notice. Charles doesn't want to be blamed if the visit is cancelled. The monarch hosts or flies out to other heads of state on the advice of his government. They repeat his personal opinions are neither here nor there. There are no plans to deviate from anything. So how Starmer uses Charles. The government, for his part, is nervous of attempting to leveraging the king to, obviously, again, to soothe Mr. Trump and coax him away from Greenland. What, so they think that sending Charles is going to coax him away from doing whatever this is? Because, again, like I said, Trump is just a puppet. This isn't actually about Trump. This is about whoever's standing behind him and wants Greenland's resources. And that's all the oligarch bros who funded his campaigns and are funding whatever, agendas he has got going on now. So it's not really about soothing Trump. It's about putting whoever's behind him in check. Okay, the government, the palace, and the king himself all understand the magnitude of pulling out of a date with the US president. Nobody who matters is going to care that he pulled out. In fact, we'd actually have more respect for them and see that they have a backbone. Even if Charles managed to smooth things over, Trump would just change his mind, or that psycho Stephen Miller would sacrifice another 3 hobos and order an invasion of Greenland himself. Exactly. I would imagine that Downing Street is simply kicking the can down the road here, knowing how quickly the situation can change because Trump is a demented madman in poor health. Basically, they're not going to decide either way until March. And I genuinely hope the decision is to skip the state visit, regardless of whatever Trump's fixation is in 2 months. I agree. Just skip it entirely. Because they could go, he could do whatever he wants, and then you look like a fool anyway. So look less of a fool by not going. Oh dear, oh dear. I'm so glad that Harry and Meghan escaped this mess. It's days like this that I'm like, for you. For you. All right. Let's get to your comments and then we will get on to the next thing. We'll get on to Harry's trial. There's a lot to talk about here. Let's see. Oh, actually, before we get on to Harry's trial, we have to talk about what was going on up in Scotland. I find it hilarious that William and Kate went up to Scotland literally to avoid Harry, only to be booed. And it was Harry getting hellos and good morning from outside the courthouse. I don't know which one of you squaddies went, but thank you for encouraging Harry. And thank you, yeah, just thank you for being respectful while you were there. And again, like I said, if you are going to show up to support Harry, be wary. There have been reported stalkers trying to get close. Don't get too close to the photographers and the tabloid folks. But thank you for those of you who we can hear you in the video footage, encouraging Harry in a respectful way. Guys, what happened to Brian's squaddies? Oh, Brion squaddies. I miss a podcast. I don't know who that is. Does anybody know what happened to Brion squaddies? Lola Love, you said Trump just told them today at Davos that he's not going to take Greenland by force. I mean, Trump has been saying a lot of things and then he does a 360 and sorry, does a 180 and then decides to do it anyway. Yeah, like seeing Charles is the last thing that Americans need or want. Let's have a look. Wendy, you said the UK royals' power died with Queen Elizabeth, and so did the monarchy and its reputation. The world has moved on. The royals are only relevant on Salty Island and getting increasingly less relevant even here. I predicted at the very beginning of the year that this is going to be a very, very, very rocky year for the royals. Like, we're only in January, or coming to the end of January. Kate and William have gone up to Scotland and there's people heckling them about the Epstein files. I think something that even the royals themselves aren't expecting is going to come this year. I think things are really just not going to go well for them. But it's that karma, right? All that karma that they've been trying to throw on our faves, it's going to come back to them. And I think this trial is very much the beginning. I do think that maybe one or two things might come out of this. Okay, just give me a sec, folks. I don't think I can play the video because I'm trying not to get hit by the copyright police. But I did want to play the audio of William and Kate up in Scotland. But this is taking its time to load. So okay, let's see if it's gonna let me play this now. No, okay, it's not gonna let me play this now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just read this article and then we will play that after I've done reading this. But I want to start by reading what the Daily Fail tried to do to Harry ahead of his court appearance. Because They are up to their old games. And I'm not surprised because Harry does, it seems like, have a strong case. And it is the Daily Fail on trial. Let's just remember that. All right. Ooh, I've got so there's actually so many articles to get through today. Even I'm confused. Okay, so the Daily Fail tried to play a daily trick to get Harry to testify a day earlier. Okay. So on Tuesday, Harry attended the morning session of the case, but he exited court when the court adjourned for lunch and didn't come back. It was around that time that the Daily Fail's lawyers played a dirty trick. In Tom Sykes' words, the Mail's lawyers were supposed to have 2 days for their opening statements, which would have meant Harry would testify first on Thursday. Well, their lawyers, the Mail's lawyers, abruptly shortened their opening statement and pushed for Harry to testify today in court. I can only assume that the purpose of this was to knock Harry off his game, but I think it's notable that the Mail's defense is so pitiful. They found they didn't actually need all of that time for their opening statement, which mostly consisted of attempted character assassination, of course, because that's all they've got, of Harry alone, with little to no mention of the 5 other plaintiffs. And so what does that tell you? I think that the Daily Fail is ultimately more concerned about their image in the face of being humiliated by Harry than they are even the other um cases brought against them. I actually don't think that they would, if all of the other plaintiffs, Elton John, Liz Hurley, Sadie Frost, I honestly believe that if the Daily Fail lost to all of those, they wouldn't care. As long as they don't lose to Harry. That's really their issue here. So the Duke of Sussex has accused the publisher of the Daily Fail of dirty tricks after he was required to give evidence in his privacy trial a day earlier than expected. Harry was scheduled to enter the witness box at the High Court on Thursday, but his appearance was brought forward after the barrister for Associated Papers took just 75 minutes to open his case. And you know why it only took 75 minutes to open his case? Because they don't actually have a case. They're guilty. A source close to Harry said ANL publishers of the Daily Fail and their legal team have had months to inform the court that their opening argument would last less than 2 hours. Instead, they have resorted to game playing and dirty tricks consistent with the way they have treated not just the Duke, but all of the victims in the case. Honey, they ain't got no case. They guilty. They think that by pulling the schedule forward 24 hours, they are giving Prince Harry less time to prepare. Honey, Harry been prepared. He's been preparing it for years. The last 3, to be specific. Safe to say he's ready. David Sherborne, barrister for Prince Harry and other celebrities, complained on Wednesday that Anthony White KC, representing the publisher, did not use the day and a half scheduled for his opening statement. Mr. Justice Nick Lynn, the trial judge, dismissed the complaint, saying White could not know how long he would take until he had heard Sherborne's own opening statements. Oh, please. Please. White had accused Harry's lawyers of clutching the straws after Sherborne said evidence of payments from private investigators showed they were involved in unlawful information gathering from the publisher. So article ends by saying, from what I gather, many royalists and reporters are genuinely surprised when Sherborne laid out the plaintiff's case. Those people huff their own supply and they believe that they can dictate everything about these lawsuits and create their own reality. But Sherborne made it clear that the use of private investigators was widespread across the Mail for decades And it wasn't just one guy, Gavin Burrows, endlessly perjuring himself. So, just an update on that. Harry's testimony is over, but the Associated Newspapers lawyers have claimed that they would need to question Harry for a day longer, but they only needed 2 hours and they didn't even ask him about many of the articles in his suit. Harry's final words of the testimony were about how this years long process has been hellish, and that the Mail have made made my wife and my wife's life an absolute misery. So I'm actually gonna get into all of Harry's statements in a sec. But basically, the fail wanted to drag this out a little bit longer and have Harry in that dock a little bit longer. And it's like I just said, they don't care if they lose to everyone else as long as they don't lose to Harry. That's what this is about. Imagine. It's all about ego to them in the end. So I'm going to go through just a breakdown of all the parts of all the highlights of things that were said, okay? Just so you get an idea. Oh, there's going to be a long one, folks. There's a lot to get through, so buckle up. Grab your coffee, water, tea. So let's start with, okay. So this is Harry talking about, who is he talking about here? I think he's talking about Katie Nicholl. One moment, folks. So the Daily Fail's lawyer questioned Harry about Royal Rota rat Katie Nicholl. White alleges she would go to the same or similar nightclubs as the Prince and polo games. So what he's trying to insinuate is because Katie Nicholl was around Harry, that she would know about some of these details. But everyone who knew Katie Nicholl knew that she was loose-lipped, knew who she was, and that nobody would be loose-lipped around her. That's what Harry says. So how would she get information if everybody knew that she was loose-lipped and that they would be quiet around her? If her sources were so good and she was hanging out with all of my friends, as she claims, Harry said, then why was she using private investigators exactly? If you were around him at nightclubs and at polo games, Katie Nicholl, why would you need to use private investigators to get into Harry's personal life in details? Insane. The trial isn't in one of the historic courtrooms with lots of mahogany and Victorian furnishings. It's more like a university lecture room knitted out by IKEA with lots of boxes of folders and papers on desks. There are rows of lawyers behind Prince Harry and the opposing side, tapping away energetically at laptops. I can't even imagine the scene in there. And we don't get pictures of the inside either. It must be chaos. I mean, those laptops might as well be cash registers, as this guy says, because it must be costing both sides huge amounts of money. So when Harry goes up to give evidence, there are chuckles when he's asked by his lawyer, David, how he'd like to be referred to, same as last time he responds. Prince Harry. Please refer to me as Prince Harry. So then Harry's witness statement is published. Okay, you ready, guys? He says, following the death of my mother in 1997 when I was 12 years old, and her treatment at the hands of the press, I have always had an uneasy relationship with them. However, as a member of the institution, the policy was to never complain, never explain. Now, don't you just love that Harry outright says that? He outright calls out a ridiculous policy from the institution. There was no alternative. I was conditioned to accept it. For the most part, I accepted the interest in my performing my public functions. However, in late 2016, when my relationship with Meghan, my now wife, became public, I started to become increasingly troubled by the approach of not taking action against the papers in the wake of vicious, persistent attacks on harassment and intrusive, sometimes RS articles concerning Meghan. He says this case is about holding to account the journalists, executives, and editors he says have used unlawful information gathering against him. And next, I also wanted to say before I go to the next thing, this is Harry effectively refusing to be a passive participant in his wife's harassment. Can't say the same for William. In fact, William very much expected Kate to just take everything on the chin. Mind you, Kate worked her butt off along with her mum to get her into this institution anyway. But it must sting to see the other brother protect his wife while your husband, the king, doesn't protect you to the same capacity. All right. Because they have to play this game with the tabloids. So, attention has now turned to the Daily Mail journalist Charlotte Griffiths. Anthony White suggests Griffiths and Harry met in Ibiza. So what they're doing by saying things like, oh, Katie Nicholl went to nightclubs with Harry and went to the polo, game with Harry, is they're trying to find a way to say, oh, well, this is how they knew about all of this information, like flight details, because they went to the same clubs. But the prince says he'd never been to the Spanish island until he went with his wife, Meghan. So the lie detector test determined Charlie Griffiths was a lie. Prince Harry says he met Griffiths at a house party and had no idea who she was when he met her. White suggests the pair saw each other socially after this party, but Prince Harry rejects this, going on to say his friends were plainly aware of Griffiths and they wouldn't have shared information with her. Exactly. So Anthony White KC, for the publisher of the Mail, is now asking Harry why he didn't complain about certain articles when they were published. Again, Harry references the institution, meaning the royal family, saying, well, I wasn't allowed to complain. An article from 2002 about his friendship with sports presenter Natalie Pinkham is now in question. It was published by Katie Nicholl, mentioned in an earlier post. White says the information in it came from Pinkham herself. After Nicholl called her, I strongly reject that, the Duke says, saying Pinkham knew who Nicholl was, and while she did have a phone conversation with Nicholl, she didn't feed her lines for the story. He accuses Nicholl of inventing quotes for the narrative and continues to strongly deny that Pinkham and Nicholl had a good relationship or any relationship at all. I believe that Natalie's number was obtained unlawfully by Nicholl. And then Harry goes on to say in another statement that, well, he accuses the press of trying to drive him to drinking and drugs. So he says private information being attributed to sources and friends by the papers led him to suspect those close to him were providing tips to journalists rather than the details being gathered by unlawful means. Harry gives an example of an article from 2005 about his then relationship with Chelsea Davy, which included information that goes into extraordinary level of detail and made him feel he was part of an endless pursuit, a campaign, an obsession of having every aspect of my life under surveillance. I can't even imagine how freeing it must be for Harry and Meghan to be in the situation that they're in now. And for Harry, he must have dreamed of escaping this when he was young. He probably wakes up in California and thinks, my gosh, how did I get here? And he wouldn't have gotten there in the way that he has without a woman like Meghan. That's the thing. And that pisses off the institution and the tabloids. And this is why they have to keep pushing this narrative of Harry is being controlled. Harry is lovesick. Harry is under a spell. Because, yeah, Harry would have become his own man. Maybe he would have found his way to the US. But not in the way that he did meeting Meghan. And all that she also brings to the relationship now and helping him find his freedom. Harry says that the articles written about him made him paranoid beyond belief, and the papers wanted to drive him to drink and drugs to sell more of their papers. Absolutely, that's what they wanted. And you know how we know that's what they wanted? Because they've done it to celebrities so many times. Look at Amy Winehouse. They pretty much did the same things to Caroline Flack as well. Completely distorted what happened between Caroline Flack and her partner. They drove her so crazy, she took her own life. So, Associated Papers, the publisher of the Daily Fail, has denied allegations of unlawful information gathering, of course. And they're also arguing that the case has been brought too late and strongly defends its so-called journalists in the face of accusations. So this is other witness statements that Harry has written. He attacks the Fail and its so-called journalists personally for threatening his personal security and making his early relationships impossible. He describes one Daily Fail article. Let her. Oh wait, hang on a sec. Let me just. I think I need to change. Oh yeah. One Daily Fail article, which was titled "Let Her Rest in Peace" from July 2006, as really disturbing, with a crude headline in reference to a phone call between him and the Duke of Cambridge. The reporter, Rebecca English, is now the Daily Mail's royal editor. Harry says, "I remember Rebecca English as a young journalist at the time, trying to make a name and career for herself through the use of my private life without shame." Harry's claim focuses on stories between 2001 and 13, a period during which he had several girlfriends, including Chelsea Davy. His statement claims the Daily Fail was the first to disclose her name, and from that point onward, everything blew up, and her life as she knew it was over. Her ability to enjoy some semblance of privacy evaporated. He says he took action against Associated Papers because the publisher claimed what happened. The statement was made at the Leveson inquiry to the press standards in 2012 by Paul de Cray. Prince Harry says, "They had me so convinced that I didn't even think twice about it, nor did I dare question Paul de Cray out of fear of retaliation. The advantage they had was that their approach appeared more belligerent than the rest. If you dare take us on, we will destroy your life kind of approach. I don't think it left anyone with any other option than to believe Associated and accept that they must be telling the truth. But we know they've always been lying." Okay, I'm just trying to see if I can condense any of this information. Okay, so Harry goes on to say that going over these stories is traumatic. I'm sure it would be. He tells the court that he feels not great hearing these stories again and describes it as a recurring traumatic experience. "I never believed that my life is open season to be commercialized by these people." Again, he says his life is not a matter of the public interest and becomes passionate in his speaking. He continues, "Having my life like others commercialized in this way since I was a teenager, delving into every single aspect of my private life, listening into phone calls, blagging flights so that they could find out where I was going. It was a time when everybody was in competition with each other. To sit here and go through this all over again and have them give their own defense and claim that I don't have any right to privacy is disgusting. Say it, Harry. Say it because it's true. It is absolutely disgusting that they think that Harry doesn't have any right to privacy. Should we start prying around Katie Nichols' life and the other Rota rats? Should we start prying around into their lives? I don't think they'd like that. But they think every single part of Harry and his wife's life is up for fair game. Even public figures deserve a private life. The meaning of privacy is very, very clear. Katie Nichols, just because you sit on a podcast of the Daily Fail every single week and show your face in front of a camera, it doesn't mean that I have the right to put cameras and listening devices in your home. It doesn't mean that I have the right to know absolutely anything about these tabloid writers who are in many ways themselves public figures. They pretend they don't know what privacy means. Okay. And Harry goes on to say that the Mail made his wife's life a misery. It's like they pick one person and are just relentless. But obviously Meghan was the person because she was marrying Harry and marrying into the royal family. So there you have it. There's some of the things that have been happening in the courtroom today with Harry. Okay, the audio for William and Kate in Scotland finally loaded. So I'm going to play that. But just as you're listening to this, just keep in mind that, Kate and William went up to Scotland to try and avoid Harry. Jump off the back of the fact that he's here, of course, but mostly to avoid him. And then only to be encountered by hecklers. Now, listen to this.
How long have you known about Andrew and Epstein? How long have you known about Andrew and Epstein? Have you been covering up for Andrew?
Go away, man. Go away. That's enough. There's children here, right? Police officer, right? You can't only be arrested.
How long have you known about Andrew and Epstein? How long have you known about Andrew and Epstein? Have you been covering up for Andrew?
Now, the first thing you'll notice there is he asks a very relevant question and there's people standing around in the crowd telling him to shut up. This is why we don't move forward in this society, because these predators know that even the most jankiest stranger on the street is going to defend you if you're a predator. He's asking a relevant question and they're telling him to shut up.
Go away. That's enough. There's children here, right? Police officer, right?
Now, listen to what that police officer says. There's children here. The way in which we protect our children is by holding abusers accountable, not by yelling at the very man who is asking the relevant questions. The audacity of that police officer to say there's children here. Unbelievable. Like, hello? How much more tone deaf can you be? He's literally asking about Epstein and he's like, there's children here.
How long have you known about Andrew and Epstein? How long have you known about Andrew and Epstein?
Shout out to that guy. Shout out to him. You're a real one. Because the behavior of those people around trying to tell you to be quiet when you're asking relevant questions Disgusting. Okay, let's go through your comments and then we'll get on to the next thing. I pray that Harry wins this case too, Lottie. I think there's a good chance he will. The case is a strong one. I mean, the fact that the Daily Mail are out here flip flopping, trying to trip Harry and his lawyers up. That's how you know they don't have a case. I'd be interested to know what kind of penalties, if any, will come to any of the crooked journalists like Katie Nicholl. Does jail time come with this? Is there a fine? Community service? Because they need to be held accountable in some way. Thank you so much to Simone Black. You said, Anne, are you going to talk about what's going on with Brooklyn Beckham and his family? Yes, I am. I don't even have it in the headline, but I feel like I should put it in the headline. I am actually going to talk about that. Thank you for asking. Dorothy, you said the only thing Trump wants from the king is his rare gems. His rare gems. Did you mean to say rare gems or rare gems? Oh, I read Harry's statement. Okay. Lottie, you think that there will not be a meeting because Trump looks ill? I mean, Charles is ill too. They can be ill together. Thank you everyone for streaming in. Appreciate you so much. Oh, is Elaine here? How are you, Elaine? Oh, is Elaine having a bad day? I'm so sorry, Elaine. I'm glad you can be here though. You are much appreciated. All right. Let's move on to the next thing. Yeah, imagine running away, trying to avoid someone, only to be met with that. Thank you for whoever did that. You are a real one. All right, let's move on to where are we? Because I've got so many slides, folks. So darn many. Also, just a word on Meghan's PR situation. So it seems like she's gone back to the handlers at Sunshine Sachs, which is an organization that she's been working with from the time that she was an actress. We saw a massive change in communication style between Harry, Meghan, their people, and the tabloids. Recently, there was, they had a massive change of comm staff, which I think was a great idea. No offense to the comm staff that they had before, but I saw one of them in an interview and I was like, oh, I can see why they changed. Because honestly, the last comm staff, it wasn't hitting. So yeah, Meghan for now seems to have gone back to Sunshine Sachs while they transition, I guess, maybe into, finding another comms person. I think that with the Sussex team, I think what they're struggling with is, should they have in-house or should they have agency? And maybe they need to find something in the middle because, and I think we've seen this over the years, that the in-house team, their approach used to be way too laid back. And I think they didn't know, okay, should we come out fighting and biting? Does that help? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I think it's about having a balance in between the two. You know when to stay calm and collected, and you know when to put your middle finger up and let them know that they're nonsense. So we'll see how things go now that Meredith is gone and Meghan's gone back to her old folks. Also, Netflix released the figures for With Love Meghan. So let's have a look at this. And remember, Netflix is a platform that you actually have to pay for. So these are figures of a platform that we've had to pay for to watch this. It's not free on ITV like Kate's Christmas Together, whatever, and that flopped. So we just had speculation from the millionth time that the Duchess of Sussex is unlikely to continue with Love Meghan, her Netflix series focused on cooking, entertainment, and crafting. Now that's just hearsay. Hasn't been confirmed. Meghan has been saying as much for months that her focus right now is building as ever, and there's not enough time for With Love Meghan or her confessions of a female founder podcaster. Founder podcast. I mean, that doesn't surprise me because as ever alone would take so much energy on top of all of the philanthropy, on top of being a mother and a wife. So it wouldn't, I mean, again, this isn't confirmed, but would it surprise me if they don't do another season of With Love Meghan? No. And I don't necessarily think it's a sign of a failure if Meghan doesn't do another season. I actually think it's a sign of success because she's just got so many other things going on. Well, the most recent story probably came out when it did because Team Meghan knew that Netflix was about to release their viewership numbers for the last half of 2025. With Love Meghan's ratings are perfectly respectable for a lifestyle cooking show, but of course they're being compared to Netflix hit show Wednesday. Yeah, but Wednesday isn't that the show about the Addams family from the point of view of Wednesday? That's a completely different genre and style of show than With Love Meghan. So I don't even think that they can be compared. So Netflix has released streaming data for the second half of 2025, including the ratings for Meghan's series With Love Meghan and the accompanying holiday special. With Love Meghan's second season was the 1,224th most watched program on Netflix between July and December 2025, according to the streamer's engagement report for the second half of the year. The show notched 2 million views since August. It's 2025 release in August with 9.7 million hours viewed. So the first season actually ranked lower. It was the 3,000 most watched. And yeah, it was the 3,000 most watched. So yeah, the first so that's amazing that the second season actually ranked higher than the first. And mind you, Wednesday was the most watched show on Netflix. That's what we're comparing it to. So yeah, I'm sure Meghan's critics will gloat, but these are very respectable numbers. So Netflix is probably just happy. This was another experiment for them to see if lifestyle programming would work, whether people would want to watch. You know, they went into it knowing that it would be niche and actually delivered. And they're invested in as ever. So if the show doesn't do so well, they've got the product. So well done, Meghan. You know, those figures aren't a joke. For what is effectively a niche lifestyle show, like this, With Love Meghan is not going to have mass appeal to everyone. It's going to have a appeal to people who like homemaking. All right, I did say that I was going to go through the the Beckham thing, I'm actually not, because it's coming to an hour now. It's going past 3. So I'm going to cover that story. And the reason I'm going to cover that story is because there are so many parallels to Harry and Meghan, but I'm going to cover it in my next podcast. So I am sorry to that person who asked, but it's getting really late and I need to get to bed. But I hope you got a general feel of where we are with Harry's case. I'm going to circle back to the whole Govan Borough situation tomorrow and see what other details we get from the case, because it's, yeah, this is what, 9 weeks? And already the Daily Fail are playing games. And the people who are taking this case to the very end, they have not taken any money. And I think that they're going to want to see this to the end, even at the 11th hour where we are now. I still don't believe that they will take money. I think that Harry and his people and the other plaintiffs know that they have strong cases. All right. Lottie, thank you so much for the super chat. Very much appreciated. And I'm so sorry, Simone. I will talk about the whole Brooklyn Beckham thing tomorrow. Okay. We've got all the tea and I've got all the slides. They're actually ready in my back end now, because I thought I'd talk about it now. So you won't have to wait until the next podcast. It'll be the first thing that we talk about. All right, folks, gonna wrap things up. Thank you so much. Love you all. Thank you for your donations as usual. And we'll catch up tomorrow, okay? Ciao. Oh, thank you so much. Before I go, to V Bram. Much appreciated. Okay, ciao.